what was Ole saying during all this? Your old tag partner, the other original member of the Four Horsemen. We've talked about Rick, but talk to me about Ole. Ole's probably happy to see you back, or I don't know. Was Ole ever happy? What can you tell us about coming back and being with Ole here?
Happy as he could be, I think. I think he chose to be working during that time, and they had called him, and, after Tully, they figured out he wasn't coming. Ole would be the next guy, because we had just planned on, Rick and I and Tully picking up where we left off and going from there. If it was going to add a fourth guy, okay. But we figured the three of us would be fresh enough, new enough, still fresh in everyone's minds, the Horseman thing. And we hadn't been treated badly, as far as finish wise with the WWF. So we were still solid. We were still golden. But when Tully, we figured out he wasn't going to be part of the package, then Ole came back and he had a good attitude.
So let's talk about the creative for you guys coming back. Well, I guess just tell us. I mean, I know your first pay-per-view back was Starrcade 89 Future Shock, but I think you popped up and did something with Dragon Master like around Christmas. I don't know though. It was sometime in December, right? Catch me up. When did you come back actually in front of a WCW crowd?
Well, we were surprised at center stage for TV, and Rick had this angle going with Gary Hart, Muda, Dragon Master, and Buzz Sawyer. It was just kind of Rick on his own, had been going on for a few weeks. And I think a week or two out, he had teased it about he had a surprise. And then the week before he teased it, he had a surprise. And he had a promo going on in the ring, and it looked like the bad guys had circled the wagons and they were fixing to kick the crap out of Flair. Ole and I ran in, and we had a big melee, and those guys powdered. And, without social media and the sheets and all that stuff, exposing it was a nice surprise for those folks. And I guess if you're sitting home, it was a nice surprise. The feedback we got was very good anyway. Those guys fed us nicely, and we had a nice little flurry, and the Horsemen were back together, and life was good.
So let's talk about Starrcade 1989. It's December 13th from the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. There's about 6,000 fans there, a gate of around 70 grand. You're fresh off of, your most recent pay-per-view being Survivor Series. And then before that, SummerSlam. You're working bigger audiences for the WWF. Now you're here, and, your tag partner's not here, and your money's down, and the house isn't as big. This has got to be just weighing on you like, fuck, I have made another mistake here, right?
Well, I was a little concerned about the house being down, but I also had seen it before. When I first got to Jim Crockett, houses were down then, and I mean really down. And, with the proper leadership and, still looking around the locker room and seeing there was a lot of talent in that locker room, we could rebuild it. You just needed some leadership. And I hadn't followed it, and I hadn't watched the show while I was up there, because the last thing I want to do when I come home, is you're never off on Saturday anyway, but if I'm on the road at 6:00, I'm heading to a show with the WWF. So I never got to see the show.
Right.
And I wasn't taping it and all that stuff. I was more concerned with what I was doing than what the competitor was doing. So, I didn't know, if their angles were good, if their foundation was good, if it was anything was building, who was hot at the time, who wasn't. I just looked at that show, and I looked at some of the matchups, and the fact that you had Luger and Sting and, and some of those guys in the mix with the Road Warriors, that seemed a little bit interesting to me, which you hadn't had that before. That was the main thing. Muda, I knew, would hold his end up in that mix with Flair and those guys. So, there were some good elements on the show, and I don't remember that much about the show because we had one little bit on there. I think we were Flair's corner for one match or something, had one little fight or something and fought out. I don't really remember, but we weren't featured on that show. I just remember there were some interesting matchups and things of that nature.
Yeah, they're trying to do a tournament concept. We've recently covered this with Tony Schiavone on What Happened to Win. So if you'd like to do a deep dive on this pay-per-view, then go check out Tony's show for certain. But there's a lot of talent here. You know, the Steiner brothers and Doom and the Road Warriors and the Samoan SWAT team are in a tag team tournament. And then we've got 4 tippy top guys with Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger, and the Great Muta in a singles tournament. So it is an interesting concept. But it can be a chore to get through in 2019.